This is a message to anyone who needs to hear it this week. That if you are feeling called to do something different, to do something that you really feel called to, but you feel like it's not working, you have a dream, but you feel you're taking the steps and you're not getting anywhere, you're starting to doubt yourself, this is the episode for you. As I reflect on 10 years of running United ArtSpace, I'm going to talk about the ups, the downs, how long it took me to get this thing going in the first place, and how I've navigated all the challenges that have got in my way. And by the way, at the point of recording this, we are about to run an event, Kickstart Your Art, and a lot of celebration to bring in artists and talk about the power of art and how you can become the most creative version of yourself, the one that lives with intention, the one that creates with confidence, and the one who becomes the most empowered version of themselves. That's the direction that we're going to be taking these celebrations in. So check the link out below if you'd like to join us for that. So I am preparing for our celebrations and really reflecting back on 10 years. And I have to say, 10 years ago, when I set up United ArtSpace, I did not see it still existing 10 years later. So I remember back when I set up United ArtSpace, I was lost and I tried many things before it. I tried to set up a physical studio space. I tried to exhibit my own work. I remember, having exhibitions all over the place, putting my work here and there, and trying to find space that I could work from. I'd also applied for lots of jobs because after graduating from my fine art degree, I could not get any work and I didn't have a clue how to sell my art. It was hard. So I remember being lost. And one thing I knew for certain was that I wanted to stay in the creative industries. I wanted to stay around artists. I wanted to stay connected to my own creativity. And I wanted freedom. At that point, I had babies and I really wanted to choose how I spent my day. I also have ADHD, dyslexia, and a really crazy brain. It doesn't fit a typical employed role. And I knew that I wanted to work or create a life where I could work around that. Some days for me, my head literally spins so much that I can't even think straight. And I definitely am a feeling person. So some days I'll wake up and I just don't feel it and I'm not going to do much. So to be employed it doesn't work very well, or it didn't work very well with that kind of, nature. Now, don't get me wrong, I do work hard and I do show up, but there are moments where I don't. Anyway, so cut a long story short, which is probably too late, is that I wanted to create this life. And that's all I knew at the very beginning was those basics. And I kept those in my heart. And as I started to move forwards with my options, which was getting a job, applying, not getting anywhere, and then because of that forced my hand really to think about what is it that I actually would like to do then. And it was a series of events that took place, reading a magazine and a doctor's surgery about people setting up a business, didn't think that could ever be me, but it planted a seed, and then a conversation with somebody else. And then, there was a series of events when I look back now that all planted seeds inside of me that gave me a message of set up your own business. You want to be around artists. You want a space. At that point, a space to create was so needed for me, to be around the artists, to have that freedom. So to get very clear on that, that's when things started to come my way. The conversations started happening. There was a lot of fog for a while, but then I was led to studio space and opportunities, and it started to move from there. Now, a lot of those opportunities that came in the beginning didn't work. I ran a studio space. It didn't make me any money. It was a massive struggle. But now I look back and I realize that it was almost like I had to go through that to get to the next level. And as hard as it is sometimes when we're going through bad things in life, it's there to teach us. It's there to help us grow to the next level. There's always a lesson in everything that happens. And for me, it felt like everything was a struggle. But now I realize that was the growth. And then what ended up happening was I went back to my joy. I just went back to, I want to do this, and I don't care if I get paid for it. I just want to create art challenges. I want to bring artists together. And I got back into my absolute truth of how I want to spend my days, regardless of anything. And I didn't have the luxury back then of having lots of money and lots of time. I had babies. I had no money. I was in debt. But there was something really powerful about going back to what is it that I really want to do here? And it was to bring artists together and create together. That absolutely brought me so much joy. And then from that, it became this kind of, it felt like a struggle, but it was me learning then what steps to take next in this kind of new chapter of my life, that I was entering the online world, now doing something completely different, building a community online that I'd never ever done before. So I look back now and I really realized that I was like, I want, there was this point where I wanted results and I want them now. I want to make money now. There was a desperation at one point in my life, well, a long point in my life, of like this need, I need. And that's when everything did feel very difficult, I remember now. And when I look back, it's when I lose the grip, when I loosened the grip and went back to absolute pure joy without necessarily fixating on the outcome and where this is taking me. That's when everything started to move in the direction of joy, and then money started coming and opportunity started coming and conversations, and it's been, an ebb and flow and up and down ever since. The 10 years that I've been doing this now, it has been up, down, up, down, up, down. And I think the bigger the up, then the lower the down. And, and I've learned an incredible amount about myself, about navigating the business. I didn't ever believe that I could run a business. I have dyslexia. I'm totally rubbish with numbers. And I remember Sharon and I once sat in Sharon's studio trying to work out numbers of how much we'd need. And I remember us sitting there going, so if we sold something for £100 and we sold 10, how much would that be? We couldn't figure it out. And I'll never forget, I was going, I don't think we can set a business up if we can't even work that out. It was a really funny moment. I'll never ever forget that. We were laughing so much. And one of the things that I've realised is you can set a business up even if you are really rubbish with numbers. So there was all these things along the way, these limiting beliefs of I could never have a team. I can't manage anyone. I've never managed anybody in my life. I can't even manage myself. Some days I can't work. Some days I'm a mess. There was all these things that I was looking for to prove I couldn't run a business. And then what I did instead was slowly turn that around and follow people that were doing it. And I remember finding someone called Carrie Green from the Female Entrepreneur Association. And I found Carrie years and years ago. And this is back in 2016 or 15, probably, when I found Carrie. And Carrie really inspired me because Carrie would just show up as a real down-to-earth, truthful, I don't have it all together, but this is what I know, and would be and ahhing on videos and and it was like a breath of fresh air to me because I knew that myself, I don't have it all together. I'm literally a hot mess. I'm all over the place. I have a erratic brain. I like to just go with the flow. I'm extremely laid back. There was no way I was going to sit there and film videos and edit a video. Like, no way. I'd rather pull my own teeth out. I was like, no, I just don't want to do it that way. And it was really nice to meet someone who modeled what I wanted to become. It was like, that's how I want to show up, just as an unedited version of myself. And even kind of like recording this podcast, I was talking to a friend about this. Like, when you're doing a podcast, you can follow a structure and you can follow, and sometimes I do, I'll follow the hook. So you have a hook, you start at the beginning with a hook, and then you have like 3 teaching points that you're going to teach someone, and then you kind of wrap it up with a summary and end. And sometimes I follow that format. And a lot of the time, like today, I just press record and I see what is going to come out of my mouth. And I have been criticized a lot over the years for the way I record and the way I show up. And I've had a lot of criticism for being unprofessional, for talking rubbish, for, just like nonsensical, just like random conversation. And I've had a lot of criticism about everything that I do, the way I speak, the way I swallow, the way I blink, and it's really, really interesting. And then do you know what happens? As soon as I have a criticism, shortly after, and I remember this once, I had a really harsh criticism from a very, very famous artist. I'm not going to mention his name. And because I actually do like this artist, but he's very opinionated. He's very up himself. But you know what? I still think this artist he is amazing at what he does, and he's created an amazing life, and he makes millions from his work. And he listened to one of my podcasts because one of my followers had tagged him. I'll never forget the day. He just he was vile. He was so rude. It really hurt. He was very, very, very rude. And shortly after that, I think it was about an hour afterwards or the next day, I don't know. It was in a short time frame. Within 24 hours, I got the most beautiful message from someone who said, I really needed to hear that podcast today. You have just literally made me cry. And there was something in what you said that has made me step up today and go and be the person that I'm born to be. So you couldn't have had two more opposing views. There was just one horrific view from a really well-established artist to someone struggling that day who needed to hear my nonsensical, crappy words, according to this other person, that make no sense whatsoever. This person, it hit them in the heart. And so I have massively learned over the years to trust what it is that you have to say through your words, through your art, the way you move, the way you dress, the way you show up in the world. Trust it. And if it feels right to you, then it's probably going to feel right to someone else as well. In fact, it will, because there are billions of people in the world. And you don't have to please everyone. And the more you try and please everybody, the more you move away from your core, from who you truly are. That's what I believe anyway. And there will be times where we try and please everyone, and I've been there and I do it still now. But then when I bring myself back to who I truly am and what I have to say and what my work wants to say, as scary as it is, because I'm going through a transitionary period myself right now, especially in my art, where I know that the work that I'm going to produce is going to annoy some people. It is. And there are going to be people who really don't like it, because I'm starting to stand for something, and that makes me uncomfortable, but it feels right. It feels like it's right for me to create this work. So before I start to put it out there, I am going to work on that side of myself to prepare myself for, if you don't like it, it is not for you. And we have to, I think, remind ourselves of that. Being creatives, we are putting ourselves and our work out in the world. It's so vulnerable that we have to get to a place where we accept that, yeah, some people aren't going to like this, and we are looking for our own people, and they are out there. And the more you actually bring yourself back to yourself, I also believe that is when the magic starts to happen. That is when you start to attract things back. It's when you're really in tune with what it is that you want to create and who you really, really are. That's when you start to feel it in yourself. You start to feel the work flow. You'll start to speak about it more confidently because it is so you, and people will listen, and you start to attract opportunities. And this is where it all comes from, which is what I'm going to talk about in Kickstart Your Art. It's the foundations of everything, your why. And so just looking back at the 10 years, I think that's been one of the biggest things, is to keep bringing myself back to my own passion. Because when it's a business, there's that side, and then also what people want. And so they are a bit of a, hand in hand when you want to make it a business and make money, but it comes first. What is inside of you comes first. And then how this, relates to other people. And so the other thing I'm just trying to think before I wrap up in my 10 years is also how to navigate the ups and the downs. One of the big things that I have experienced in the last 10 years is every year for the last 10 years, I have thought to myself, I'm winging this. And then the year after, I'm still winging it. And then the year after, flipping hell, I'm winging this. It's like every year I feel like I am just winging it. Just like, wow, we got through another year. Wow, we got through another year. And then 10 years on, I still feel like we're winging it. And it's dawned on me, this is what business is and this is what life is. I feel like, yeah, I think that that is what it is. We just get through it. And but there is a mindset thing there for me as well, which I am working on. Two parts of this mindset, really. One is the belief that I am just winging it. You know, there is part of me still now, after 10 years of running a really successful business that's made, you know, $2 million in the last 10 years. There's still a part of me that does not believe that I am smart enough to have made that happen. It must have been a fluke. I must have got lucky. I must have been winging it. You know, I was riding a wave. There's still part of me today that will not accept that I actually made that happen because of who I am and what I'm capable of. There's still a part that just thinks it was just fluke. And I'm working on that right now, to sit and actually through my 10th anniversary go, no, Michelle, you actually made that happen. Because when I look back, it's not been easy. I have worked and I've taken courses. I've worked on myself. I've worked on my mindset. I've worked on how I manage a team. I've worked on how I manage my finances. I have worked through all the challenges, the mindset blocks. I have poured my heart and soul into United ArtSpace. I made that money. Like, yes, I did. And then the other part is, you know, so there's that part of actually not believing that I had the skill to do it. It's a fluke. But then it's also this sense of winging it is a perception. How can I explain this more simply? So we create a tolerance in our own lives. And someone said this to me yesterday. They used a really great word for it, and I can't remember the word they used. It was a great word, but it was basically how we normalize things. Oh, what was the word? I can't remember. But basically what the word described, how we create in our life a tolerance level or a state of normalization. So, for example, okay, for me, when I first started, I just dreamt of getting to £50,000 a year. That felt like an extraordinary amount of money, far out of my reach, and it felt absolutely ridiculous to aim for 50,000 a year. And it almost felt terrifying to actually hit that as well, because it felt like such a lot of money to me that I was scared of that goal. And I was chasing that goal for such a long time. And like I say, it was stretched. Anyway, when I hit that goal, which I actually surpassed by quite a lot, I think when I finally went over the 50,000 threshold, I think I'd earned 100,000 that year. And so that was a shock. I was like, oh my gosh, I've broken the threshold. Like, I had that goal for probably 4 or 5 years. And a lot of the reason why I wasn't hitting it is because of the expectation on myself not to hit it. It was because I had normalized the lower earning to be the norm. The tolerance beyond that was way out of my comfort zone. This level of abundance and what's going on in my life is what I believe to be, you know, what I'm capable of, basically, is what I was saying. And beyond that is not. So there was a lot that I had to work on in terms of myself. And now I've got to a level where it's multiple 6 figures a year. And and it's been like this now for a few years. And I have a goal to get to the next level, but it's sticky. And And it's because, again, I've created a tolerance. I've created this level that there's no way I can go beyond that, surely. I mean, even this is ridiculous. Like, even now, every day I'm thinking, this is ridiculous. I have to check my numbers because I can't believe what I'm looking at. And it's like a disbelief. And until we work on that side of ourselves to expand the tolerance, to smash the glass ceiling that we've placed on our heads, that's usually what we've done. We've created a ceiling that we can't push beyond because we've created this kind of tolerance, this normalization. And I'm speaking about it in terms of money, but it's in relation to almost anything in our lives, That is something big that I've learned being in business, is that to recognize those levels and to think beyond them and work on that. And that might be the type of art that I'm making, the scale, the money that I'm making, the impact that I'm having, what's coming out of me, So it's expanding that elasticity that someone else said to me yesterday. That's got a bit deep, but there we are. I'm gonna stop this now and wish you all a wonderful, wonderful week. If you'd like to join us for more of this conversation around how we live, create, become, and celebrate 10 years of United ArtSpace with us as we start to really lean into how you become so empowered and creatively empowered, and how you bring yourself back to what it is, your truth, your art, how you connect that to people. This is the direction that I'm moving forwards now into the next 10 years of my own journey. So thank you so much for tuning in, for listening, and let me know if anything resonated in this with you today. And I'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye-bye.